Showtime.
Yes, showtime indeed it is. And very timely of you to say showtime, right when the stream came online, Connor.
Right when the stream came online. It is showtime right now, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to do some flips inside this subway car. Let's go.
I hear some sirens in the background. Are they coming to pick you up?
This is the there's the least amount of sirens I've ever heard living in this neighborhood. Curse the stream because there might be a heck of a lot more now that I said that. But I only hear sirens like once or twice a week. And in my old neighborhood, when I was living in Brooklyn in Borough Park, oh my goodness, sirens constantly and people honking at each other constantly. And it's insane. It is and people honking at school buses.
The sounds of sirens.
What?
The sounds of sirens.
Oh my goodness. I'll write a new Paul Simon song.
So did you watch the Super Bowl?
I was working during the Super Bowl, but I had it on my phone. And I went upstairs to watch with some of the seaters and like the like manager outside. And we watched the halftime show. I got a new dance move I want to do for you all. This is my new favorite dance move. Okay, you ready, Johnny?
Yeah.
That's my favorite dance move. That was my favorite thing from Kendrick's dancers.
I love that. Did you see that Taylor Swift was booed?
I did see it, but I didn't hear it. I saw her go, but I didn't hear the boos.
I thought she had a good reaction to it. She just kind of chuckled, like,
yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like, you know, it was one of those things where last year's Super Bowl was so fundamentally different from the point of view of Taylor Swift, right? Like her new boyfriend was like won in an epic game. It was like one of the most fun, amazing Super Bowls I ever saw. Mahomes was just incredible.
Yeah, well.
And and it was like the top of the world. And then this one, she was apparently used to be an Eagles fan. And she switched, you know, she's sleeping with the enemy, apparently.
Of course, with your boyfriend, who's also like a star, maybe not a superstar, but like one of the tight ends of all time, probably, or at least one of the best tight ends right now.
Right. But she's, you know, Philadelphia Eagles fans, I grew up around that area. It's in character for them to boo her for leaving, you know, the Eagles, but also the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs used to coach the Eagles. So a lot of people just left them. They had their night of retribution, and they were so dominant that it was like, despite the fact that the game itself was not fun to watch, it was kind of fun to watch the Eagles pull some of those hardcore plays and dominate on the field.
What was weird was that, like, I don't know, the past like 3, 4, maybe even 5 years, the Chiefs continue to get every call from the refs. You touch Mahomes, you get a 15-yard penalty. You touch one of their receivers, it's off. It's not offsides. It's pass interference or whatever. It's unbelievable. And like a couple calls went in the very beginning went Kansas City's way, and you're like, that's what's going to happen. If it's a 50-50 call, it's going Kansas City's way. And then that was it. And then like they're hitting Mahomes in the head. Like people are pushing their hands into Mahomes' face mask, toppling him, no penalty. And you're like, oh, maybe the NFL got the memo and they just let them die on national television because everyone was so. But I mean, I'm sure that Vegas made millions off of people rightly assuming that it was going to be the Mahomes show again, and then being completely incorrect for what actually happened.
Well, I wanted to actually draw your attention to something because I want to see if I get the right part of it here. But President Trump gave his first pre-Super Bowl interview as the 47th president, and he made a prediction for the game. I think I have it queued up to the right spot. But he also talked about his presidency, so we can listen a little bit and comment.
You thought about how to try to bring the country together, to reach out or to find common ground? Have you thought about that or how that might go?
I'd love to do it, but I would say this: we have to come together. But to come together, there's only one thing that's going to do it, and that's massive success. Success will bring the country together, but it's hard. And I say it's hard. I just signed a bill allowing for women not to have to be punished by men in sports. In other words, men are not going to be allowed to play in sports against women. It's ridiculous.
You're a sports guy. You're a football fan. Size up these two teams.
I'm a big fan of both teams. They're sort of different. Philadelphia have one of the greatest running backs, Saquon. You know, Saquon had an uncle who was a great fighter, and I ran Barkley, his name was. So you have a great running back. You really have a great quarterback. The other team, the quarterback really knows how to win. He's a great, great quarterback.
So game prediction?
I hate to do it. I just say that I've watched this great quarterback who has, by the way, a phenomenal wife, okay? She's a Trump fan. She's a mega fan, so I happen to love her, okay? But she's a great person. I watched her being interviewed. I said, boy, that's pretty good. He's great, and he's great. I guess you have to say that when a quarterback wins as much as he's won, I have to go with Kansas City. At the same time, Philadelphia has a fantastic. It's going to be just a great game.
Well, he couldn't have been more wrong.
Two predictions were wrong there.
By the way, Patrick Mahomes' wife is beyond annoying. One of the worst fans in football. So
I have no idea.
Huge L take from the Donald on that. But yeah, she's awful.
In your opinion, I don't know. Maybe some people in that world like her.
She was she used to like make content, and he was like kind of like a part of the team making like him and his brother too. So his little brother, Patrick Mahomes' little brother, and then his wife were like making content, and the team was like all cool with it. And they got so much internet hate, and they got so much hate from people that like run the NFL talk shows that they're like no longer allowed to make all the Chiefs content like at the facilities.
Okay. But he also got two predictions wrong, technically, not just
Saquon
one.
didn't do much.
He what's that?
He was talking about Saquon, who did not do much.
No. I'm saying he got two predictions wrong. One, he predicted that the Chiefs would win. That was wrong. But he also predicted that it would be a good game.
Oh.
It was not a good game.
No, it was boring.
Yeah. All right. So what did you want to talk about today?
Oh, there's just positivity in the news right now. I feel like before we get into all the craziness, let's start with something light. I mean, we did start with the Super Bowl. You want to talk about pennies? Okay.
Yeah. We got a big revolution, the cultural and governmental revolution that we are going through right now. It leaves no penny unturned. No stone.
Copper. We're losing money on copper. People are taking pennies, melting them down, and making more money than the pennies.
Trump orders Treasury Secretary to stop minting pennies. So, are we going to go march at the U.S. Treasury now with Maxine Waters and scream "No justice, no peace" until we get our pennies back? And and Chuck Schumer will go, "We want pennies. We want pennies." Is that the next move?
I think so. I'm ready to march for pennies. I mean, this is something that should have been done a long time ago. This is a good thing to do. This is a win for Donnie T.
You don't think that him getting rid of the pennies is a sign of his his encroachment into democracy and no, just kidding. Anyway, yeah, I think my professor today was talking about it. Somebody asked him. He made a good point. He was saying that it costs a lot more money to make a penny. He said when the penny first hit the market, it was worth about 75 cents. it would be worth 75 cents today. That's how much 1 penny was worth when it first got on the market. And he was like, a nickel. He was like, well, a nickel was today is worth significantly less than a penny was worth back then. And so the problem is that it costs more money to produce the pennies, and because they can't keep track of them, they run out of circulation because many of them are under your couch cushion or at the bottom or just like in a landfill or anywhere on the ground, in the sewer. Like there's pennies everywhere, you know, in like, so, you know, in other countries I've lived in, they don't have a 1 piece. You know, they have maybe like the lowest they have is like a 5 piece, and they get the prices are just adjusted. You know, you don't have $2.99 anymore. You have $2.95.
Yeah, and why not do it? Is it's nothing at this point. There's nothing you can buy in this country with that amount of money.
Yeah. The thing is that the penny lobbies really are. This is what Dr. Brand said, that it's the penny lobby is the reason the penny still exists. The people who manufacture the pennies and are employed to make the pennies, they've been fighting and paying the government to keep the penny in circulation, and now that isn't going to work right now under the current administration. So they're taking the opportunity to phase out the penny. And I don't think the economy is going to have any significant impacts, but we'll see.
Yeah,
Trump will
I
put his
don't.
face,
You say what you're saying. Sorry.
I was just reading a comment. Trump will put his face on a Bitcoin instead. I believe he did that, didn't he?
Let's see.
He did that, the Trump coin, in between his election and his inauguration. And a lot of people bought it, and apparently it's not worth anything anymore. But it was like just supposed to be some commemorative coin. Maybe it'll be worth something in like the future as like a relic.
All I know is that Hawk to a coin is gone, and it's garbage, and she's really upset by it, and she stopped doing her podcast because of it.
So I wanted to show something because I found this was interesting. Donald Trump attended the prayer breakfast. Let me try that again. Donald Trump attended the National Prayer Breakfast, which is a tradition for presidents, and he made some comments.
No way.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm making it sound like, but he said something interesting. He proposed some idea. Flock of Smeagol's here. Hey, it's nice to see you.
We got all the boys.
Yeah. So he proposed a
news, a delay in the Trump administration plan to offer incentives for federal workers to resign. The deadline to make a decision was at midnight, but now a judge says federal workers have until Monday. We get more now from ABC's Perry Russum.
President Trump today calling for a return to religion in the U.S., saying it will help overcome political divisions.
It unifies people. It brings people together. Democrats are going to be able to have lunch again and dinner with Republicans.
Trump speaking at 2 prayer breakfasts in Washington this morning, later saying he will sign an executive order today, creating a task force, combating what he calls anti-Christian bias.
This task force will be to immediately halt all forms of anti-Christian targeting and discrimination within the federal government.
Meanwhile, today is dead.
What do you think of that?
No one was eating lunch. Lunch was bad. You could say Merry Christmas and eat a baguette. We love lunch. Lunch is great. Most important meal. Siesta afterwards. We love lunch. I don't know what he's even talking about. I mean, I hear that he's like, okay, we're gonna stop bashing Christians, but like, in what do we? In what regard? What are we talking about?
Well,
to a large degree, how are they not?
It sounds to me like it kind of, it's no different than the opposite of that. So like we've spent the last 4 years sort of trying to stamp out any vestige of white supremacy in the government as defined by like academics who are heavily influenced by Kimberly Crenshaw and Judith Butler and like, you know, Marxism. And so now they're just sort of doing that same thing, but they're doing it for like the kind of people who would vote for MAGA. So, you know, they're like basically, I would say that this kind of sounds like a sort of similar thing to DEI for Christians. So I just don't understand why they couldn't have a task force for just general religious tolerance, like tolerating other people for their religions, including Christians, and just like add more stuff about anti-Christian bias to their trainings or something. Because I mean, I'm sure there's people who are there. I know people are biased against Christians. It's not like nobody's not biased against Christians. Obviously, people can be biased against anybody.
Yeah.
You know, but I know a lot of people who work for the government, and like they definitely have opinions of Christians as being like people who engage in magical thinking and are far right wing and, you know, doom bucket collectors. So I guess that kind of bias does exist. But I don't know why there needs to be a task force.
Yeah. It does seem one of the things that people have been talking about is just he's doing so much nonsense so that you're not paying attention. Like what Kellen's comment said, like was just a lot of distraction so that you can pretty much get like so you're not paying attention to the other things that are going on, which is something that he did in his first term and something that like the news can't help but talk about silly nonsense things because they don't really talk about like policy too much. They don't really talk about the results of what policy are going to be too much. That's not what their programs are set up to do. So they're like, they grab the headlines and then it's like, all right, Elon Musk has your social security number. And you're like, oh no, like, how did that happen? I didn't know that was part of the deal.
Well, let's keep going on this video because they talk a little bit more about the freezing, the federal freezes.
Yes.
Deadline day for the 2 million federal workers facing buyouts. The offer is to quit now and get paid through September or risk being fired. Intelligence workers across multiple agencies are among those getting buyout offers. To comply with a review of the federal workforce, the CIA emailing a list of new employees to the White House over a non-classified system. The list includes the first names and last initials of employees hired in the last 2 years.
We go to great lengths to protect the cover for CIA officers. And if all of that can be...
Isn't it Swalwell the guy that got like honeypotted?
I don't know. Well, that's a guy though. I've seen that guy before.
He was honeypotted by China. They get that's just a funny story, but like he had like a girlfriend who was a Chinese spy, and he was given. They say he gave her his secrets. So it's funny to hear him talk about security. But what were you saying?
Was he in an administration or was he just a CIA agent?
No, he's Eric Swalwell. He's the congressman or something, or the senator.
I'll come up really.
Oh, well. He ran for president.
Incredible.
That year that 5,000 people ran for president in the Democratic side.
Yeah, doesn't look good.
He was one of the 7,000 Democratic candidates.
Oy vey.
Very forgettable, but I remember that he did have an affair with a Chinese spy. So him talking about security cracks me up. But it wasn't supposed to be about him. The issue is that obviously Trump wants to downsize the government, and downsizing the government is going to be a difficult thing to do within the government because the government doesn't want to downsize itself, right? If you're going to go into the Congress and say, I want to, I want to get rid of this number of military forts, right? We're spending too much money on military forts. I want to get rid of 10 military forts. Okay, which congressman volunteers to have their military fort get shut down in their district, costing their constituents jobs, and then they'll lose their seat because they gave away, they all these people lost their jobs during this guy's tenure as congressman. Nobody's going to agree to that. So you create you bring in an outside independent force is the idea. I mean, that's sort of what the Fed was, like the Federal Reserve was created so that Congress didn't control the economy. And so Elon Musk in some sense can be viewed as the kind of like that sort of thing where it's like, you can't do something within the government, it needs to be done. And so you outsource. But obviously that leaves a lot of questions about what exactly are his criteria for deciding what has to go, what has to stay, who has to go and who has to stay, and how much is factoring into it what they've said online in the past, what their political affiliations are, because we know a lot of people in the federal government are liberal, and a lot of them are very outspoken about their hatred for Trump. So will the algorithms just sort of like automatically, like Squid Game style, just cut off the anyone with anti-Trump tweets or anything, or
I mean, there's fat to be cut. Definitely. We know a lot of people in the federal government, and we know they've given us many stories of people who just get promoted into oblivion. That's not just a federal government thing. There's plenty of private businesses that do the same thing, and plenty of private businesses have fat to be cut. But when a private business gets its fat cut, that just affects the business. Whereas when the government gets its fat cut, it affects us, and us within that office will make it harder for everyone to do their job, and no one really exactly knows how their job security is. And sometimes, sure, you need to put a little fire under the pot to make it boil. I don't know. That's not an expression. There's an expression around what I said, but so you got to light a fire under someone. I don't know, dude. But like I'm worried about what the results will be of that. And did we talk about the government freezing in that? Because that was a part of the government, his mandate on that, yes, or his executive order on it, or whatever.
So the judges, so a federal judge in Rhode Island,
yes,
froze the.
Want to get that New York Times article up?
Yeah, hold on.
I think it's not good.
Right, Eric Adams.
Put CIA people's names out there.
Is this the one? No, that's ICE.
No, that's the one. No, it's right below. Highlight. We will talk about Eric Adams because I live in New York, and we're going to talk about New York.
That's a preview. Judge rules Trump administration failed to. Yeah, this one. Okay. Take us in. So,
this is I have the Times article up, but that's fine. I'm putting this one up right now. So the judge rules Trump administration failed to comply with in order unfreezing federal payments. So there's been, according to this article, there's 2 lawsuits ongoing at the U.S. District Court in Rhode Island. And there's a state of New York versus Trump. It's just these are lawsuits that are challenging the Trump's administration's attempt to freeze trillions of dollars in grants and loan funding. It's interesting that a district court judge is going after what Trump is doing, not just someone with a significantly less power than a federal judge. And remember, when Trump first got into power, there were many courts that court seats open that Trump was able to fill at various levels. So generally, the courts are going to side with Trump politically. But this is something where they are trying to stop his freezing. They're trying to unfreeze the freezing. And there's a New York Times article as well that says that there are more than 40 lawsuits that have been filed against the administration and this freezing of federal payments. There's going to be lots of fights. There's going to be public fights constantly, I feel like, with this administration of what Trump is trying to do. And then the reaction of what he actually can do. It's clear from Trump's first term and how he carries himself that he does not know what he's allowed to do, which is interesting as well. Someone going in to the federal government just throwing weight around, going, "I'm going to do this until someone tells me no."
Right, I agree with you, but I feel like sometimes we talk about that as if it's happening in a vacuum, because the narrative, the oppositional narrative against Trump is that he's a dictator. And so everything he does that's heavy-handed is going to be filtered through that lens on the opposition media side. On the side that's for him, they're going to say that the institutions, the state of our country demands a fundamentally different approach. So, like, Joe Biden leaves the presidency in a state of almost like there is no presidency. Now, I don't just like blame him personally, but by the end of the 4 years the Democrats were in power, like, the country was in a state where the presidency isn't what it used to be anymore. Like, this is the new model for the presidency, you know. And so, you know, if I found myself ascending to the presidency at this time after the Biden presidency, I'm not saying I would do the same things that Trump is doing, but I'd probably be throwing executive orders in all directions as fast as I could, because this is the game I've been elected to play.
Sure. No, I get that. We have a comment that I just screwed up on my computer, but we have a Dr. Mantis Toboggan. Here we go.
Hey, welcome back.
Mantis Toboggan, thank you for coming back. This is interesting. This is not something I have seen or heard, and I would like to check more out about. So I'm going to do that right now. JD Vance tweet about judges. I don't care what Joe Scarborough has to say about that. Judges
should be ashamed of himself.
I know, dude. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. We were texting back and forth on this a day or two ago, because they are. It is kind of like a I don't exactly remember what you had to say about that, but they do have the power to check. That's like a
right. Power. But he said the judges aren't allowed to control executives' legitimate power. What does that mean, legitimate power? So he's like, effectively the logic is they can check the executive branch unless the executive branch is legitimately exercising power. And I'm sure the Trump administration believes that any action it takes is a legitimate exercise of executive power because they're doing it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that he said legitimate power there. It's a bit of a no true Scotsman. But he also said that the courts should not tell a general, the courts would not tell a general how to conduct a military operation. That's true. If a court was telling them, go left, go right, shoot this target, shoot that target, I would not be satisfied with that arrangement. However, you know, during the drone era of Obama, they would just go in and they'd go into the courts with these lists, and the courts would just be like, we're really hungry, so we're just gonna rule, yes, it's okay, you can drone strike those places. So the courts have been involved in the carrying out of legal, covert warfare. So they have in the past had the power to influence targets and things like that. But that says more about the co-optation of the court system to the military-industrial complex. I feel like that they just became willing participants in rubber stamping that agenda Whereas
Yeah.
now they're trying to fight against Trump, or some of them are, and Trump is not like using them to the way other presidents use the courts to just sort of like do what they want to do. Anyway, let's see. Republicans' talking points were about Biden being senile. Well, it's tough to say if the office was actually less effective or if it was just the image, but I don't know. I had the strong impression that Biden was not really participating much in that last year, doing much. I mean, so
There were
there's a lot of issues that need addressing, and they need addressing fast, I feel. So
one thing I heard from one of the things I listened to, there's no article for this, but was that behind closed doors for a good portion of the beginning and the middle, Biden was fine, lucid, and was talking to people fine and regular. It is when the pressure of public speaking, debating Trump, and trying to get all his talking points out was all put together, that was when his age and inability to be, I don't know, mentally flexible, I guess, to move and shuck and whatever with Trump throwing things at him. He wasn't able to do that, but he was for a good amount of time, from what I heard, rather lucid behind the closed doors, but out in front he was just.
I mean, that's what they said about Woodrow Wilson too. Like they were like, "Oh, he was just crippled. He was on the ball," and then like, who knows, man? He probably was also mentally gone.
Did you know that Biden just signed like a production deal or whatever? He's he signed with a talent agency.
What is he? Is he going to join the Muppets? Like, what is he going to do?
It's for like book deals and stuff.
Is he going to do a sitcom?
He's hilarious, because someone's pulling the strings. All right. Anyway,
Yeah,
but yeah, gonna release books and whatever.
I don't know. I mean, Vance just said some. I read that tweet and I was like, well, I don't agree with. I just don't understand what any of those words have to do with anything other than they're just defending the president. But some people were like, somebody said, oh, well, that's the Trump administration wants to throw out Article 3. And I was just like, that confused me because, well, Article 3 doesn't really say much about what the Supreme Court or any of the federal courts do. It just says they arbitrate disputes between the state and the, other interests. Like if you had a business that had a lawsuit against the country, that would be decided in the court. And then like precedence has built the federal court system into what it is. Biden doing a dance musical and performing his own stunts.
Would love to see it. I'd pay top dollar for that.
That's like Spider-Man the musical, but like, yeah.
Except hopefully the same result does not happen. Now, there's an interesting article that you put up. Elon was investigated by USAID.
Yeah, the deep state came after Elon too. Starlink.
Did you see the Starlink commercial at the Super Bowl?
No.
Yes, there was a T-Mobile X Starlink production together, and T-Mobile and Starlink are giving everyone free mobile access ability to make calls and have internet until March, no matter what carrier you have. Now, I don't know what that means.
Starlink?
Yeah.
Wow.
Starlink, I mean, with T-Mobile.
I live in Elon Musk's like imagination, because like my city is like his driverless cars are driving around on my block all day. I see a driverless car every 10 minutes where I live in Austin.
I wonder if governments, like local governments, are going to do laws on whether or not you can have a driverless car. Because like I don't want driverless cars in here. That would there's enough nonsense and chaos going on here.
I actually would really like to see driverless cars. I'd like to see driving become not a thing anymore because people. I was just thinking about all the stupidity that goes into driving. Like you're supposed to just be focusing on driving, but then there's all these other things that have nothing to do with driving that cause you to drive badly, like your stress or your like there's traffic and you're running late, so now you have to drive faster and take more risks. Meanwhile, I'm just driving my kid to the supermarket and you're trying to rush to work, and then you get into it, you knock me off the road. And also, it pisses me off that airplanes could land on the highways. Like you can just be driving your car and then an airplane can just crash on top of you if it wants to.
The air crashes have been rough, dude.
Yeah.
And I believe part of it is because Trump had defunded some of the airline control, like the tower people. I need an article for that. I can't just say that. I need information on that.
Well, we jumped away from Elon Musk for a second.
Ready?
Yeah, I mean, it says alleged. This could be something that Elon himself has sort of like floated out there to sort of add to the like, this is why like USAID is corrupt. They even tried to go after me. Or it could be like a reason why Elon Musk is trying to get back at USAID. But I just think that USAID was too obvious a target for Musk not to go after, because they have a lot of stuff that they do that pushes into the culture war. They're about spreading American ideas in other countries, which is against the America First ethos. Mm-hmm. And they have those like historic links to the CIA. So they go with the deep state thing. So it just seems like that's why they would go after USAID and not because Elon had some personal reason.
Well, I really don't like Elon's ability to throw his wallet around, his ability to throw his influence around. And I just got an email from the New York Times that I am stripping from the paywall. Give me just a moment. But it's about Elon Musk leads bid to buy OpenAI for $97 billion.
Well, they're going to build a big AI facility here in Texas. And, you know, UT, for example, has tons of AI certified engineers, all that stuff, who are going to be graduating in droves year after year from this university. And we already saw AI was being used in Trump's ad for the Secret Service, in which he had like an AI Teddy Roosevelt and AI Abraham Lincoln. You know, I think the future of propaganda is going to be AI for sure. I mean, Trump also had the AI of him at the Kennedy Center, directing the orchestra.
Sorry, we got a great comment from what looks like Rory the cat. Elon has been increasingly unhinged because he outed himself as a fraud in the gaming community. Now, he was talking about like beating some game with like an incredible difficulty. Let me see. Elon gaming news.
Yeah, gaming?
He said that he was like he live streams like a role-playing game, but he said that he was like much better. Here we go. Elon admits to cheating at video games.
Wow.
Silly thing. On Rogan, he said he was one of the top 20 players in the world for Diablo 4. And then like his high scores just made no sense. And in the conversation, Musk admits to account boosting, a cheating practice in which people get other players to power up their characters for them.
Right.
Anyway, let's look at this article that we just put in. The Elon leads bid to buy OpenAI. I'm a little nervous with the. This is only This is not a long article at all. This is the whole article. Oh,
The
geez.
article is just what it says up here.
Awesome. Thank you, New York. And that's why the failing New York Times are going under. It's by this article's by two people.
Whoa, Jack. Whoa.
Paragraphs. There's
Whoa,
two
Jack.
sentences.
Hold it.
Yeah.
Buddy, Jack, you drop and give me 20. It says check back for updates, okay?
Okay. Incredible.
Okay. What does he say all the time? What does Biden always say? Anyway.
Hey, Jack.
Well, anyway, he does say anyway. Anyway. He would be in the middle. And if I ever see Donald Trump in the anyway.
But okay, there's just a lot going on with Elon. I don't love that he's in the that he's this new cultural guy, that he's the lackey for Trump. He's like a squire. He's like, oh my God, he's like Baldric.
I don't think he's a lackey.
He's Baldric. He's a buffoon.
No, he's not a lackey. He's been doing a lot of stuff. I mean, if anything, he's like a mastermind or whatever. He's more like Rimmer Wormtongue than Baldric. But I don't know if him and Trump talk that much. It sounds like he just does his thing, and then Trump just, promotes it. I mean, that's kind of they always said that he wanted to do something like that with Pence, where he was like, look, you take care of a lot of the boring leadership stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll promote it. And Trump picked Pence because he needed that religious right vote. But ultimately, for his own purposes, he picked a poor vice president that first time. And he has definitely made up for it now, because J.D. Vance is way more capable on the news shows than, like, you're not going to get him. Remember when Pence he was so dead. And remember when even the Fly thought he was dead, like in the middle of debate. Like, that's how colorless, lifeless he was. I mean, Trump's literally orange with blonde hair, and then Pence is just a gray white man with like no personality. And I just think he's better off with Vance in terms of having a VP that isn't just like useless for his own purposes.
For sure. And before we get into our grades, because we're at the 43-minute mark here.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about we just have one article on it. There's a bunch of articles. There's a bunch in the ether of whether some things are true and some things are not true. But I wanted to talk about the ICE reports, the one that I had highlighted.
Yeah. All right.
I want to talk about this because I have anecdotal stories, and you know how much I love anecdotal stories. You guys can pick up with anything.
Anecdote.
Eric Adams directs New York City agencies to let ICE search schools and other locations if the staff feels threatened. My dad plays music. He's a music player, and he's been playing all around Dutchess County and went to Westchester County, where I'm from, and saw some people that we know, and they were telling us, or they were telling my dad, that ICE had been in Westchester going around looking for undocumented immigrants. And I went to school with a few undocumented immigrants growing up, and that would have really sucked. It would have been horrible if I didn't go to school with those guys anymore because the president took them away. There's a lot of people in New York who do the jobs that other people don't want to do. I'm not talking about farming and whatnot. I'm talking about being in the back of kitchens, being a porter, someone who cleans a restaurant up. Landscaping is a big job for Hispanic immigrants as well. And these are all jobs that people that other people aren't doing, and that help restaurants go and help other people live their lives, and they pay them a heck of a lot of money in the first place.
Right, but why aren't people doing them in the United States?
because they don't make enough money. These jobs make no
Bingo. Who will do the work for that amount of money?
People who
are here without documents.
People who
So
need.
who's the one that's perpetuating that toxic situation?
I mean, the
business owners who are trying to make the money, save the money on labor.
Yes, and that is true. But restaurants don't make a heck of a lot of money. You know, their restaurants are failing constantly. It is hard to run a restaurant.
That's true.
Most of them lose money anyway, unless they have a gimmick, unless they have shows to sell, or they have silly cocktails that they're charging up the wazoo about. Like, restaurants are hardworking jobs where people go to work and help allow you to enjoy an evening where someone's making a meal for you. A lot of people that work as chefs in the back. I worked at a 4.5-star restaurant growing up in Westchester.
Right.
Everyone except for the head of house was an undocumented worker, and they were all nice. Maybe I wouldn't say great guys, but they were nice guys. I mean, it was a kitchen. Bad things happen in kitchens. If you've ever worked in a kitchen, but they were all good people, and it's good. Those effects will ripple in more than just the undocumented communities, but also that it's happening here in New York. I put out a short where I said, "Is New York going MAGA?" Because Eric Adams is cozying him up to Trump. He's cozying himself up to Trump, and this is something that I am watching, and obviously New York is watching, as New York is fiercely Democratic. But
I think that the fact that New York is Democratic is not a reflection of whether or not they would support this, because they may not be the type of people who would want to openly say they support it, but they would be the type of people who would perhaps maybe like complain a bit about it in front of their other liberal friends, but secretly be like, well, but I'm glad that, Eric Adams is doing the common sense thing here, and protecting the city from these people, So I think that I think this is one of those issues where there's a lot of people who what they virtue signal is not necessarily how they really feel. And so they don't want to be responsible for cheering on deportations, but they clearly inside themselves probably think that it's not that big of a deal, or that they support it.
Dr. Toboggan has another good point. He probably is looking for a pardon.
Oh yeah, no, Eric Adams. Yeah, he basically was so marginalized by the Democrats. I mean, the Democrats were literally going after, the Democratic prosecutor was literally going after him and trying to get him removed. And so he just went sort of like Bobby Kennedy. He was just like, screw it, I'm going all in on the other side. I'll be friendly. He didn't support Trump, but he's like, I'll be friendly to Trump. And at the Alfred E. Newman dinner, whatever that thing is called, the Catholic dinner, Trump was saying nice things about Eric Adams. And this is an easy one for Eric Adams to jump on board with the deportations and everything. I predict that this will make him a more popular mayor in the eyes of the New Yorkers, for sure.
The Al Smith dinner.
Al Smith. I think this is for him. Yeah, it's a political calculation, and I think it's going to work out for Eric Adams personally.
I think it'll work out with being Trump's friend. I don't think this will help his reelection campaign. I don't think New Yorkers are going to want him back. I think this will be him cozying up to Trump will be an easy out for the people of New York.
Yeah, but he's cozying up to him on a popular issue. This is popular. These mass deportations, people are fine with it. The American people are for this. I mean, there's plenty of people who aren't, but the momentum of public opinion is getting behind this. And I study this stuff in Europe too. And I feel like Europe and America, the anti-immigration sentiment, the like consent behind these type of policies is there now. And so, it would be politically very stupid for Eric Adams to try to stand in the way of that. I mean, it's much, for his political purposes, makes much more sense for him to get on board with this specific issue, because this is going to be one of Trump's crowning popular issues, is this immigration thing.
Yeah.
Even if it works out badly, it's still going to be his presented and believed to be his crowning achievement.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not putting my own stamp on it. It's just that's what I see. I see, I'm trying to call what I see in terms of balls and strikes or whatever you want to call it. And I see that there's support for this. If you watch this and you're one of those people, that's fine. You're welcome to sit here and watch this stream. If you're against it, you're welcome here. We're just discussing what we think is going to happen as if it's history, even though it's happening right now. Anyway, so should we grade him?
Yeah.
All right.
If you don't mind, may I go?
Yes.
So the first week, I think I gave him a C+ or a C. It was a C something.
We're gonna have to start writing these down.
Yeah. I wish I said it the first time. I wish I gave him a C-. Last week I gave him a B-. This week I'm giving Trumpy boy a D. I'm upset personally. I'm really not happy with the stories that I've heard about ICE. I'm not happy with how immigration is such a big focus. If it was solidifying or protecting the border or whatever that means, I wouldn't be thrilled, but I would understand, because that was definitely something that the voters wanted. That was something that even Democrats were talking about. I'm not happy with ICE going around looking for people. One thing that we didn't talk about, it's probably for the best, is Trump on Gaza. The CNN headline says it all. Just Trump says Palestinians would not have a right to return to Gaza under his redevelopment plan.
He says we're going to own it. We're going to own Gaza. Like it's going to be part of America. Or what, I guess. Or like have some status as part of our country. Yeah.
I'm not happy with that. One of the things that Trumpers talked about, and one of the things that I was okay with Trump about, was his lack of involvement in other countries during his first term, and that was something he championed. He didn't really stop much. He took troops out of somewhere. I don't remember off the top of my head. Should I have looked it up? Sure, but I didn't. He took troops out of somewhere. It wasn't a great job just taking him out, but whatever. This is starting a huge problem in the Middle East to a group of people who were just absolutely demolished. I understand saying, hey, we need a redevelopment plan because half of the areas are bombed to hell, but taking it over and saying outright that we're going to take Gaza and what are we going to do? Put Trump Hotel everywhere? We're going to put casinos? There was a guy, there's probably more time for this at a later episode, but I made friends with one of the original producers for Vice at HBO and Showtime. And he told me about a woman. I have all of this somewhere, and I don't remember her name right now, but we will definitely talk about it another time. But a woman that gave him $120 million for his campaign if he can promise the river and the sea, from the river to the sea to Israel. And It looks like Trump is making good on that promise. And that is deeply disturbing to me. So for those reasons, I'm out. And yeah, so that's my feelings on Trump for this week.
Okay. I am not going to include his statement on Gaza in my rating because at this point, it's only something he said.
Sure.
And I know he said it with, I know that it's rhetoric counts with the presidency, but with Trump, rhetoric doesn't automatically mean that's what's going to happen. He did say he wanted to own Gaza, but it's not necessarily like we're literally going to take over Gaza. I think that it would be one of the most catastrophic decisions in any history of any presidency if they decided to make Gaza part of the United States in some way, because especially after all this talk of like, we have to stop the Ukraine war because we can't have the tripwire for World War III being so close to Europe and Russia. And like, we have to stop World War III. And then you go and put American hotels, all this shit in like the middle of the Middle East, like as if it were just like a target waiting for a 9/11 style attack that would just like cause uproar. And then we'd end up going to war. So like, you wouldn't want to have American soil there, like to be attackable. I mean, yeah, sure. An embassy in Jerusalem, it's under the Iron Dome, whatever, you're good. But I think that ultimately Trump's plan is to go back to sort of a more fortress mentality, with the fortress being our hemisphere, the Western hemisphere. I think that's part of why he wanted to rename the Gulf of America. I don't think it was just patriotic. I think he's trying to build this like one America. And I'm sure having like Javier, what's his name in Argentina, Milei, and other leaders that are more aligned with him. I think Canada might go conservative. You know, this is all part of like this idea, and then getting Greenland, Panama, and just being like, that's the extent of our imperialism, and it's to, you know, batten down the hatches for like the upcoming multipolar world.
Yeah,
that's how Steve Bannon actually explained it in a podcast I recently listened to. So it's like the Trump corollary to the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. So we'll see how that works out. But I'm just describing what I think the Trump doctrine is supposed to be. So I would be surprised if he actually followed through on us like owning Gaza. Wouldn't be surprised of him personally buying a piece of land to build a hotel on that, but and making money off of the reconstruction in some regard, and having friends who make money off the reconstruction too. I'm kind of curious because there's something of a Warren G. Harding potential thing going on with the Trump administration. We have all these people who stand to make a lot of money, including the Interior Secretary, who's going to be opening up a lot of land for oil. It's going to be interesting to see who gets those contracts, especially now that Trump's uprooted the entire system for getting government money, or is in the process of doing that. As far as his grade, as you know, I grade him strictly on how I think he carried out his duties for the week. I don't grade him on whether I think I agree with his policies. And I do that because I want to give an accurate account of how well he did each week. Because look, he may have made a bunch of decisions this week that have set the stage for disaster in the future. And when that disaster comes, I will give him the F that week. But this week, in my opinion, he's continued to have successes on the diplomatic front with his bully diplomacy. His tariff bullying diplomacy has worked in every single instance that he's tried it. And once it doesn't work, he'll get a lower grade. So far, it's worked really well. He has the highest approval rating in his entire career as a politician. So he's more loved in America right now than ever before. He's making progress on his immigration plans, and he's making progress on the trimming of the federal workforce. That is going to be a beast of a fight. So I don't expect him to not have court freezes and stuff like that. but he's carrying ahead and ignoring court orders, Andrew Jackson style. You know, the court has made its decision, let it enforce it. And I think he knows that it's going to float up to the Supreme Court and that everything will go back his way. So he's just charging ahead with his agenda and he's implementing it. And he didn't really have any big gaffes either. The one about the airplane was last week, and I took points off for that. But he hasn't said anything that bad this week. And I really thought his tweet about Taylor Swift was funny. So I'm going to give him an A for this week.
Whoa.
Sorry, guys. It's not showing approval for his policies. It's simply, the sport of it. So don't take it personally if you wanted him to get a lower grade. But I give him an A this week.
What? I'm sorry. What did he say about Taylor Swift? I'm looking it up right now. And to those who her man said it's a horrible play for what?
No. Wait, I'll find it.
Other people's. Okay. The only one that had a tougher night than the Kansas City Chiefs was Taylor Swift. She got booed out of the stadium. MAGA is very unforgiving. Oof. That's true. She was an anti-MAGA.
Right. But Trump needs to remember, maybe he's having trouble remembering right now because he's really riding a wave of positivity and praise that George W. Bush was mega popular at one point in his presidency. And I remember when he threw out the pitch at the first game of the World Series, which happened after 9/11.
I can hear you.
That was different. That's when he stood on the rubble with the bullhorn. But he went on Yankee Stadium. Yankees were in the series. And he threw out the first pitch, and he threw a strike. And America was never more. It was never more on the same page in my whole life than it was the day George Bush threw that pitch. And at that moment, if we were grading him that week on our podcast, I would have given him an A+++++. Like I would have given him the highest rating any president ever got. I would have given George Bush an A++++. The week that we won Desert Storm, and he gave that incredible speech at the Congress after the victory, and or the week that Whitney Houston sang the national anthem at that same year, she sang the national anthem, and it's the greatest national anthem. It's right in the middle of the war, but so anyway, my point is that I would give what was I talking about? I got a little lost there for a second, thinking about Houston singing that. Oh, my point is that that George Bush went to throw a pitch at a Nationals game in 2008, after he had been president for a while, after the Iraq War and after the Afghanistan War. And he was being booed as he went to the mound and threw a very crappy pitch that wasn't a strike. And so, Bush was for a time the greatest president in the history of the world. And that time didn't last. We found out what kind of president he really was. So, we don't know yet what kind of president Donald Trump is going to ultimately be. We only know that this is his opening strategy, his opening moves to flood the zone and to have the courts take it up. And that was his first strategy. Now, does he have a backup plan if that doesn't work? We'll find out. Will this work for 4 straight years? Just executive ordering the whole way through? Probably not. So you have to see how he copes with the future challenges of the office as they unfold.
Well said.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I may be a little more emotional about it all. I appreciate Johnny's cold hard facts.
I'm not claiming I have facts. I'm just saying that I'm trying to be like just there's plenty of emotion around on the internet,
Sure.
and I'm trying to make sure that we all remember to try to talk it through detail by detail and have conversations to figure out what the right answer is. So we're not, it's just, I did the other thing where you just kind of like go with your side in times of my life. Like, oh, I'm on this side, so I go with my side. And, I ended up defending a lot of things that in looking back, I'm like, that I didn't really believe that. That didn't make sense. So,
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for
coming. Thank you.
We did it at a different time because I messed my schedules up and I got a little too busy. But we're going to try and do it at the same time every week. We're going to try and do it at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard.
Yeah, just be around the afternoon of Monday, and keep an eye out.
Time. Smack that subscribe. You hit the bell. So you know that we're hanging out and we're doing things so that you can tell us if we're right or we're wrong, and then you could text us later and be like, "You piece of shit," you know what I mean? So we're gonna do a lot more of these, and we got some shorts coming up. I haven't recorded mine, but I know what my first one's gonna be. So thank you for guys.
See you guys next week.